So how many times have you been to Sundance with a movie?
This is my fourth time.
So the first time was with Angela,
Yeah,
and you and I talked about that movie. I loved it. I just thought it was brilliant.
Oh,
But
thank
do
you.
you remember how it felt coming here that year as a filmmaker?
I mean, I was, you know, my experience when I showed the film, I hadn't shown it to strangers really yet. And so, and I brought the film over. I actually had the cans of film with me when I came over with Angela. And so they projected it, and it was a relatively small, I don't remember which place it was. And I remember just being so terrified and realizing, oh my God, I have to show this to complete strangers. It was as if I just hadn't really, because I was a painter, you know, to start with, and I was very innocent. And even though I had been trying to make the film for years, it just didn't occur to me how vulnerable it was going to be, because that film was like, you know, the inside of my heart, really. And so
It was very, very personal and intense and emotional.
Yes.
A young girl.
yes.
I remember that. I was very touched by it. But it was well received.
It was well received, and it was very, you know, my fellow filmmakers were, you know, just so sweet about it and kind, and they were really advocated for me in a way that, you know, they won. There used to be something called the Filmmakers Trophy, which they stopped doing, which was where the filmmakers voted on their favorite film, and I got that, which was really, in a way, the most meaningful thing, because that was my peers, and yeah, it was an extraordinary experience.
And when you came back the next time, so 4 times. So that means that all 4 of your films have been.
Well, because no, I have 5 because I didn't come here with The Private Lives of Emily, so I came here with Angela. The second time I came here was with Personal Velocity.
Which you wrote and directed, and it was digital,
And that
early.
was digital. That was one of the indigent films. And I came here with Gary Winnick, who had Tadpole. And we came, you know, with these $250,000 films. And digital, nobody was shooting digital at the time, you know, really. And so we came here, we didn't know what to think. And I was so nervous about making the film for that amount of money and so on. But anyway, we did it. And then we won the Grand Jury Prize in the Cinematography Award, and he won Best Director. And it was like, everybody was just asking me, is film dead? That was the only question. I said, is film dead? I only made this film like this because I couldn't afford film. It never occurred to me that, in fact, you know, in such a brief time, you know, we really were kind of at the head of a big change. But I didn't really see it that way at the time. I thought more as, you know, this is what I could afford to do, so this is what we were doing. But it was a great moment. Personal Velocity was a really great moment for me. Because I had left filmmaking, you know, I had stopped. I decided, because I just didn't think I was ever going to be able to make films. I didn't think anyone was ever going to give me money. So I thought, well, I'll just become a fiction writer, because I felt that I could maybe have a life that way. And I sold a book of short stories. I wrote a book of short stories, and I sold it. And funnily enough, that's when, of course, Gary Winnick, who ran Indigent, called me and said, "Do you have anything? We're making $250,000 films." And I said, "You cannot have any of my scripts that I've been like sitting on for all these years," because I was so nervous about, you know, making it for that amount of money. But he suggested, I said, "I have these short stories, and would you like to read the short stories?" And he read them. And he said, "What about a trilogy?" And that was the beginning of that, and that was an amazing experience. And then I had a career. I mean, like, he brought me back. I mean, it wasn't for Gary.
Was there a sense that there was a lack of support for you in the industry as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I would say like zero support. It's like probably that's what I was feeling.
So this is not atypical of a lot of women directors, and it hasn't gotten that much better.
Well, yes, I mean, that is true. That's true. I mean, you know, it's a tough one. You know, if I'm honest, some of it has to do probably with the fact that I was telling and continue to want to tell women's stories, right? But also, you know, Angela was a very poetic film that did well in terms of how it was received, but it didn't make a lot of money, right? So then when I went to make another film, had it made more money, I guess it would have been a little easier for me. But I still think that, yeah, basically as a woman, people just wanted me, I guess, to maybe stop talking about wanting to make films. And I had no support really from anyone for a long time. And I used to have these dreams that there was a banquet and there were a lot of people eating at the banquet. And there was a table to the side that was laid for one. And I sat down at that table and I ate there. And I had that dream many, many times because it was a sense of like real, very, very deep isolation.
The fact that you were a writer was a huge asset for you.
No question. I think that still now that women who are generating their own material have advantages.
So what I see with Maggie's Plan, which I loved
Did you?
and saw in Toronto, so I've been looking forward to this for a while. Well, first of all, come on, smart women are going to just eat this up.
Right.
Anyone who, and women are fascinated by relationships. They're fascinated by the ways that men and women talk to each other, manipulate each other, deceive each other, and what I love about the Ethan. All right, so it's a triangle, and you are playing with us.
Yes.
You're leading us down a road, and we don't know where it's heading.
Right.
And the way that it resolves is delicious,
Well,
especially for women.
It was just like, it was, to me, that's what it was, the idea that the whole point of a screwball, comedy, that is the ball keeps moving, you don't know how it's going to land. You might know how you hope it's going to come out in the end, but how it gets there, that's the thing, and to keep people a little bit off balance, which is like life, life is this absurd journey that you don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. And like you said, it's a triangle that keeps moving, and also who you root for moves.
Yes.
You don't even know who you're necessarily rooting for.
And they're all imperfect in their own delicious ways.
Absolutely.
And yet you like them all.
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? It's like likability. What is likability, finally? Like, if we can't like imperfect people, we're all doomed to hate ourselves, right? Like,
Exactly.
So if you can't forgive those characters, how can you forgive yourself?
So Greta Gerwig plays, and I am a huge fan of hers, and I believe that you have given her a gift. So how close to the casting interests me a lot. Let's go back. Tell me how long it took you to write this. And were you aware that you were making something, or did you intend to make something that was relatively accessible?
Well, it's interesting because after I wrote this book, Jacob's Folly, and it took me 5 years, and after that I was really exhausted. But I wanted to make a movie, and I knew I didn't have it in me to invent everything myself. So I started looking for books. I started calling my book agents and going through the whole thing. A friend of mine, who's my son's best friend's mother, but also one of my best friends, Karen Rinaldi, had written an unpublished book. And she said, I have a feeling one strand of this novel would be a really good movie. So I read this strand of her novel. She only sent me chapters that were pertinent. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a good idea. And it was the central kind of switch idea, the hook of it. And I thought, oh my God, what a great, and the triangle, the basic triangle was there. And I started to play around with that and think, oh, this is interesting. And then I talked to, I had some pages, I had some of it written, and I talked to Rachel Horowitz, who's somebody I had known before, and I told her about it. And she said, oh, I really think this could be something. And she had an idea that perhaps it might be a more populist film that I've made in the past. But I couldn't bear the thought of writing something intentionally that way. So I said, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just going to write it my way. And then if it turns out more than 12 people like it, well, then that's really great. But if my usual 12 are the ones, then that's also fine. And so, because I have this thing where I feel like I'll lose myself if I start to do things like, sort of like in reverse, putting the cart before the horse. And in the end, in a funny way, I ended up feeling like I made a film that's just as personal as other films. Because it's like my personality is a lot reflected in that.
One thing that struck me, I'm the daughter of a writer, a narcissistic egomaniac who expects the women around him to reflect back his glory.
Yes.
And many wonderful creative men who are successful in the arts are a little like that, one way or the other,
Yeah.
right? So I wondered, you grew up with a very successful writer, father, and you have a very successful actor husband. So you know a little bit about this.
I know a little bit about creative men. That is true. Um, although,
So we're talking about the Ethan Hawke character,
yes,
the writer.
Well, right. So the Ethan Hawke character.
He could be you too, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I hide myself in funny places, and there's definitely some of me in Ethan Hawke. Although, and there, I don't really know if there's like directly anything of Daniel or my father in it, like really. But the whole, I just know writing deep in my bones. I know what it feels like. I know what that obsession feels like. I also know. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of me in that moment where he's like, "Really, you think so?" Like his excitement because he feels like he's being ignored. That nobody cares about what he's doing. And finally, somebody says, "I think that this thing, has potential," and he's just so excited. And I think it's one of my favorite moments in his performance is when he's sitting on the bench and he's just in a kind of rictus of excitement.
I love that scene. They're in Washington Square Park.
Yeah, just freezing. And they really were freezing.
I believe you. Well, it's also a New York movie, and that's and it's funny. May I say it's the funniest of your movies?
Definitely. Yeah, I really kind of allowed myself the pleasure of having something be just mostly funny. I mean, there are definitely poignant parts of the movie, but the balance is more funny. Actually, one of my heroes in this whole thing, in terms of like influence, is Chekhov in a funny way, because like Chekhov is somebody who, he swings from what's funny to what's sad all the time.
And there's some buffoonish characters in there.
Yeah, and he's like as much of an influence as, Preston Sturges, who definitely I thought about, or Woody Allen, of course, certain films there. But this idea that, there's a birthday cake and everyone's laughing and then somebody bursts into tears. I mean, that's life, right? And that's what I was hoping to get.
You definitely did, and it's also a Valentine to New York. And that was very appealing too.
Well, we lived in Ireland for 6 years, which was wonderful in many ways. In many, many ways. Wonderful for our family and so on. But there was something about New York. I still miss New York. I mean, I'm a third-generation New Yorker. I love that city, and in a way, I feel like it is a love letter to the city.
Are you back?
Yes, we're back now for a while. Yeah.
Good. The other thing that strikes me about this is that you. What's the point of view? I mean, Greta Gerwig's character, you start with her. It's about her wanting to be pregnant without having a partner, and then we meet Ethan Hawke, who's married, and
yes.
the plot takes on its little direction that it goes. Why Greta for her? And
well, I mean, I thought about all sorts of people, and then I met Greta, and I thought, why would I ever think that I would cast anyone else? Because she had, I thought, the combination of intelligence and goofiness.
Yes.
And, somebody who's both brilliant and a little bit stupid at the same time. That was just like, who can play that? And also somebody who does the things that she does without feeling manipulative or like somebody you really can't stand. I mean, she does these terrible things. And she just does one terrible thing after another. One of my favorite things is like watching Bill Hader just yell at her. Like, what are you doing now? What are you, and she's just so wrong. And yet, it's when she says, "I'm so sick of being me," I really feel like there have been moments in my own life where I've just thought, I'm so sick of being me. I really actually say that quite often, but so I do think that I don't even know if the movie could have fully worked with anyone else. I mean, I think she's really the heart of the film, and she and I mean, it was a deep collaboration there.